Good evening, everybody. Speaker this evening, Rachael Wood, will be giving us a talk that will cover the history of their astrophotography for its inception to the present, and will conclude with her top 3 or 5 even processing suggestions. So, Rachael is a primary school teacher from Doncaster who still lives and works in her hometown. She is the observatory manager and the educational outreach lead for the Doncaster Astronomical Society. Is that still correct, Rachael?
Yeah, well, I share it with Johnny.
Yeah. So, where she delivers astronomy sessions for young children. Rachael writes a permanent feature for young stargazers in the Society for Popular Astronomy, and is also a member of the SPA Council. In January 2022, Rachael was awarded a Primary Education Award from the Royal Astronomical Society. So we'll congratulate her for that, and give her a good Experience Winton Astronomical Society welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Steve. As you can tell from that little introduction, I am mainly towards children. That's why tonight you'll see it's very, very picture based, and it's just going to be a nice, gentle, photographic sort of journey, just through where we started and where we are now. And then, as Steve said, I'll finish with a quick process on Photoshop and sort of show you how we get there in a roundabout way. So I will share my screen. Hopefully in a second you should see full screen. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So the title of this, I'd asked a friend, I said, our journey just sounds boring, so I don't want to disappoint people, so what can I call it? And he came up with Counting Constellations, and now I'm worried that it's overselling it and it's making it sound far more interesting than it's going to be. But as you go through, you'll see we've sort of counted our way through a few of the popular constellations, and it's basically a whistle-stop tour just through how we started and where we've got to now. So it actually really for us started in 2016. I know a lot of you have been lifelong astronomers, and we've sort of fell into it quite late, really. I've always had an interest in it, and obviously at school I enjoyed learning the planets and the basics, but never really ventured any further or did anything. And we go on a UK-based holiday every year, and we happen to go to Northumberland, and my dad always picks a castle, and my mum always picks a stately home, and my cousin always picks a bird sanctuary. And my dad sort of said, it's your Tuesday, what do you want to pick? And we didn't know, and we're actually hopeless at working together. I don't know how we manage, because all we do is fight. But my dad said, well, how about this? And then Kielder Observatory popped up. But there was only 2 tickets left, and there were 6 of us. So he said, you two go, just go and see how it is. So we took a 40-minute drive, and if anyone's ever been, it's absolutely stunning. You expect to see observatory domes, and you go up about a 2-mile, is it, Johnny? About a 2-mile track at 5 miles an hour all the way up, and it gets darker and more crowded with trees, and you suddenly come to the top and see this wooden structure that's nothing like what you expect, but it was cloudy, which seems to be the look that we get quite a lot, but nevertheless we went in, and the talk happened to be the 2 spaces left were for astrophotography, and it was with somebody who still works there now called Dan Monk, and we went in, and although it was cloudy, the talks were amazing, and it just absolutely sort of blew our minds. It hooked us in, and we couldn't wait to try it ourselves eagerly, as we all do. If you do catch Kielder on a nice night, it's stunning. One of the pictures that we took a long time ago, just a single image from the night, there were that many stars you couldn't find the constellations. I think it's a Bortle 2. I feel like it's a Bortle 2. So it did clear a little bit. It was hazy, but we managed to put our phone screen up to one of the telescopes and take a sketchy picture of the moon, or tried to. But even then, just the fact that technology can now allow you to hold up your phone and take a picture through a telescope and see something like this, that was something I didn't even know existed. So this sort of fired us up, and we had our hot chocolate and had the rest of the night and drove back down the track. And as usual, because we visit Kielder a lot, but our first visit, we got to the bottom, and of course the sky started to clear just as we left. We didn't get to look through any other telescopes, but as we got to the bottom, it cleared. And Johnny sort of said, right, let's get home. Let's get the camera out. So we drove back to our holiday cottage in Alwynton, and we started to try and take pictures of the sky. So we sort of sat and looked up, and both of us at the same time went, oh, it's starting to cloud over. Look, there's a band of cloud coming through the middle of the sky. But just as fast as we'd said it, we both looked at each other and realized it wasn't. It was the Milky Way. And so we tried to take a picture, and this was just a single image of literally the camera pointing up. When we were really chuffed with it, we were looking at the star colour, and obviously it wasn't the standard we'd seen at the observatory, but we couldn't believe this had sort of been something you can actually do, and we'd only just found out about it. Johnny's degree is actually in contemporary lens media, so he already had a DSLR camera, a very old one that we took with us, and this is what we used. It was a Canon 550D. And we were really, really excited with that. So we pointed it somewhere else, and we saw a satellite was going over, which was the ISS. And we swung it over to the ISS. And I feel like at the time it was getting quite dewy outside. We were getting a lot of condensation. So we were sort of looking at it, but just quickly trying to take pictures. And then we realized they were all out of focus the next day. But that sort of got us fired up, but at the same time I think we thought it's harder than it looks. We just had an evening of all these amazing images, and we'd learned that you can only take an image around 15 to 20 seconds without tracking, because obviously of the rotation you'll get star trails. So we kept to what they'd said and did everything, and we still were getting blurry images. And I think we sort of then went home from Kielder and Northumberland, and that was sort of it. We didn't really pick it up. I think it was something that we thought was only achievable somewhere really dark and somewhere like Northumberland. And we never really did anything else with it. We sort of left it. And then in 2017, my granddad, he'd battled cancer all my life. He's always had a different type and overcome it. And a few years later had a different type. But he really was he knew there was no coming back. And he had this telescope. He had a Skywatcher 130M, I believe. And he sort of sat it in his conservatory. And every time we went over, Johnny would ask questions. And I felt like he always fobbed us off a little bit. And he kind of said, oh, yeah, I'll show you how it works one time. And then we'd go over again and he'd say the same thing. And probably looking back, he probably bought it, and like a lot of us do, then didn't know what to do with it. So I think actually he probably just wasn't sure, and had all these ideas but didn't really use it. But as he was dying, he sort of said it was Johnny's 30th birthday coming up, and he said he'd like it to stay in the family, and would I mind if he gifted Johnny his telescope before he died. And at first I was a bit annoyed, like, why are you not gifting it to me? If you want it to keep in the family, why him? But yeah, we took it, and it sort of stayed as furniture for a while. It just looked cool in the living room, and we looked at it but didn't do much with it. And we dragged it out a few times and looked at the moon, maybe once or twice, put it away. And this was all in 2017. And that was it, really. And I think it was towards the end of 2018 into 2019, Johnny said, come on, let's take it out and we'll take a picture. So we put the camera on, and again, it was just a DSLR, and we had a go at taking a picture of the moon. And I think we were both quite actually surprised with what we got. And again, we were quite excited. And I think from there, the hunger started to grow and we wanted to do more and quickly. And Johnny's really good at researching. He's quite an avid reader of things, and he likes to research and know everything before he buys it, whereas I'm more of I'll buy it and bumble my way through. So he did lots of research and decided he wanted a HEQ5 Pro mount and all the things that he wanted to start. We'd always found from talking to people that they said, you know, the mount's the thing you want to spend your money on. So that's what we did. And I just happened to be texting one of the astronomers from Kielder and said, hey, you know, we're looking for a mount. This is what we're looking for. Do you know anyone that's selling one? And he sort of said, I can't believe you've just asked. I'm just about to get mine out of the attic to clean up. And he was selling a HEQ5 with a Skywatcher 130 PDS on top and a couple of eyepieces and things to go with it. And said, I can't believe it. You know, do you want to buy it? So I think it was literally, we agreed within a day. We bought it on the Thursday and we drove over from work on the Friday to Durham and picked it up. So it all happened really, really quickly, and maybe luck. I don't know, but you could tell when we picked it up, it was sort of a different level of gear to what my granddad had got, and I was probably a little scared by it. But you know, Johnny did his research, so he managed to set it up quite quickly, and yeah, we were away. And we'd already got the camera, like I said. Johnny, his degree is in photography, so we just kept the camera he'd used. I think it's about 17 years old now. It's a Canon 550D. And we just started taking pictures on that. And it's about the same time we'd sort of started to ask around in Doncaster and said, you know, are there any dark sky locations? And I know I definitely feel a little bit nervous when we're going out on location, and we'd gone to a few places and I'd felt a little bit vulnerable, and you don't feel comfortable dragging your gear out of the car. It's not something you can quickly pack away. So we've had a few instances where it's sort of been like a grab and run because cars have pulled up and it just didn't feel very safe. So I'd gone online in search of some dark skies, and I don't know whether it was Peter or somebody replied, I think from the Doncaster Astronomical Society, and sort of said you could try Austerfield. We've got some domes there. And they told us about the talks, and we get 2 for free if we go. So we said, why not? And we went around sort of 3 years ago, and it seems to have gone really fast. And as you said at the beginning, now we're lucky enough to manage the domes and the outreach and do all the things that is my main passion, which is sharing obviously space and astronomy with children and getting them excited, and then I can hopefully pass them on to people far more knowledgeable than me to continue. So that's pretty much where our journey begun. So I'll show you sort of what we used, and there's not lots of techie details, you know, there's not a lot of information. I know it's not a real astronomy talk without a chart, so I've put one chart or graph in there for you just to keep you happy, but it's mostly just pictures and just where we've come, and I hope you'll be able to see some progress and like it. So constellation hopping, we started off with Andromeda because it's one of the first things I look for. I think when I go out on a clear night and if it's dark and if I've got binoculars, the first thing I'm looking for is M31, because I just can't get enough of finding that little smudge. And we actually did take a picture before the one you're about to see, just through a travel scope, and it literally looked like a tiny glowing orb of light. And I remember Johnny running in, so it's like shrieking he'd found it because we'd been looking for ages, and trying to find where to point the camera. And this was just on a tripod, you know, normal tripod, no tracking. And he was like, I found it. And it was this tiny little glow. But after that, it was sort of something we said we want to do Andromeda. That's sort of the reason we started. So we had another go, and I believe this was probably taken at Austerfield. And you can tell as time goes on, I'll have a little bit more information. But when we first started, we didn't really see the importance of remembering how many hours we took or how many subs we took, or we didn't sort of take much record of that. But we know this was around an ISO 800 and it was about 30 minutes worth of 60-second subs. And I remember being a little bit, I was excited that we'd captured it, but also a little bit deflated because you see all these amazing images online, and you expect something to come out looking like Hubble, and then this sort of came up, and I was proud that we'd done it, but it was sort of like, oh. So we wanted to keep trying at it, and we are quite persistent and stubborn. So I said, no, that's not good enough, we'll stick at it. But just to sort of say where we're at this point, we were obviously taking images and stacking them. So these aren't single images. These are, a combination of images layered on top of each other. So there's just a quick brief, very brief. We were using a Skywatcher finder scope as our guide scope. We'd bought a ZWO ASI 120 monochrome guide camera, which I think it's a planetary camera, isn't it? But a monochrome one. And for stacking, we just used the free software, Deep Sky Stacker. And we were using no calibration frames for a very long time. And calibration frames can get quite technical to explain. So there is a slide a little bit later on just briefly talking about that. But just for those who maybe don't do astrophotography or do too much, just a lot of the words like tracking and guiding are thrown around. But basically, if someone's tracking, obviously you've got a mount that's tracking the apparent movement of the sky. When you're guiding, you're basically using a camera that's involving a single star as a reference point, and it's just guiding with more precision and allows you to keep your image in target without movement. So there's a little image on there which shows you sort of where, basically how the setup looks. So you've got your finder scope, the guide camera on the end of the finder scope, and then you've got your telescope with a camera. Now we were still using a DSLR at this point, so instead of a camera like that, we just had our normal DSLR stuck on the end of it. And we went back and we had another go at Andromeda, and this one was slightly more cheating because we'd gone back to Kielder again, and we were actually at Leaplish, and we were meeting up with a friend, Gary, who actually founded Kielder Observatory. He's a really amazing astronomer, and he'd invited us down on our mini moon. We'd just got married and it was a new moon, and he was giving a talk. So we went to join just to watch the talk, and he said, bring your gear, you can take some pictures. And at the end of the talk, he sort of said, right, we'll all go outside and me, Rachel and Johnny will show you things on the telescopes. And we were suddenly thrown into being part of this talk. And Gary was over there showing them M81 and M82 through his scope. And he said, if you pop over to Rachel and Johnny, they'll show you what they're imaging. And a man came over and Johnny had said, if you just give it a few seconds, this image will finish and you'll see on the screen what we're looking at. So the guy came over, kicks the bottom of the tripod as he stands there, right in the middle of a sequence. The image pops up, he leans forward and goes, and then walks off. So we were like, you're looking at something 2.5 million light years away. Those photons have come through time and they're coming here for you. And you've just gone, and then messed up our run and walked off. So we didn't actually manage to get any more because you can see the drag. There's a drag in the stars, and we still don't know if that's part of the stacks. We took what we could use, but it just would not sync up. It had been kicked that hard. We had to sort of stick with what we'd got. But it's a nice story to remember. But I just remember at the time wanting to bring him back and force him to look and appreciate what he was seeing. And of course, then winter was coming up, so Constellation hopped over to Orion, which I feel like we spend most of our life saying, let's just wait until Orion's up. Let's just wait until Orion's up. And again, with the DSLR, the 550D, we took this shot. And I remember liking this so much more than Andromeda. And I think just because it had colour. It had colour that was just there. And even though it's out of focus now, looking back, again, we were so chuffed. And even here, like, we've got little mushroom stars on the left here. But we were so proud of this. And I remember sending it to everybody. And I think this was taken in the December, but then in January, we took a trip to see Sean Reynolds, and we'd gone to Norfolk, and we'd just borrowed a hydrogen alpha filter, and we'd got a modded DSLR, which we haven't really used a lot of, but we took it just to see. And we took a single session of hydrogen alpha layers, and I combined the two together. And it took a long time, so I had to do it. I had to manually align the layers by rotation, manually by hand, and managed to line them up okay. And obviously you can see the difference in the detail, just that hydrogen alpha filter had brought. And I was definitely much happier with that image. But again, we were wanting to keep going. What else can we do? And we're quite bad for wanting to hop. I think at the beginning we were like kids in a candy shop, and instead of let's get a good quality image, it'd be how many objects can we take a picture of tonight, let's just quickly do this. And I think now we've probably learned to take your time and get a nice image. So we eagerly got the camera and whizzed it over to the horse head. And looking back on these pictures, it really does make me miss the Newtonian, because I love the diffraction spikes. But I was happy to get the silhouette of the head. And this was, I think we said, about an hour and 10 minutes of exposure. So it was quite tricky to get anything more out with what we were using. And the way our old house worked, we lost Orion really quickly behind the house. So we never had a very long window. So we didn't really get a chance to revisit this. It was sort of, I think this was the last week we could see it, and then we moved on. And then we popped over, depends how people say it, Monoceros, the unicorn constellation, and had a go at the rosette, because I'd seen so many lovely images of the rosette. And it's a really bright target, so we thought, yeah, this will be easy. And we took that. And then I remember thinking, and I thought we were sort of going somewhere. I thought we were moving forward, and then we hit this, and it was, to me, it looks like it's been printed on a piece of hessian or something. It looks almost like on fabric. And I think this is when we sort of realized, astrophotography is really up and down. It's not constant. Some days you can do everything right and guiding doesn't work, or the image doesn't come out how you want, and other days you can do the exact same thing and you can be really successful. And I think you've got to learn to take that on the chin and take it with a pinch of salt, because I sat for ages feeling really sulky. I'd waited for so long for this target, and then thinking, what is that? Even NGC 2244 in the middle looked rubbish. They didn't look blue. Nothing looked how it should do. And we got really cross. So in true fashion, we moved on and hopped onto Cepheus, and looked at the elephant's trunk. And again, it just seemed red and flat. And this was about 2 hours total exposure, and we were shooting around 4 minutes, 4-minute subs with this one. But I remember saying to Johnny, this data, it's unusable. And he's like, what do you mean? And I just said, something's not right. We've done something wrong. It doesn't look right. It's awful. For 2 hours, I expected something different. But I wanted to include this image in, because actually this is really important for reminding yourself to sometimes step away and take a step back, because I can get quite obsessive over wanting to finish something, and sometimes you can sort of go too far and you can't bring it back. And I think a week or so later I sort of thought, right, no, I'm not having it. I'm having another look. And I reprocessed the exact same data. Nothing else was added. It was the exact same raw file, but obviously I just went at it with a fresh mind and got a completely different image. Now, it's still not amazing, but the difference between the two. So I just thought that was really important to leave in, just to show sometimes you do just need to take a break because you can sometimes you just need to walk away and then walk back and take another look. So then we hopped over to Cygnus, and obviously these are still all with the DSLR, the same telescope, the HE-Q5 and the Skywatcher 130 PDS. And we love this target. So this is the North American Nebula, known for its resemblance in shape to North America. This part here is the Cygnus wall. And these were 6-minute subs, because I think, was this about the time you did the Rowan belt mod? So we were trying, Johnny had modified the mount a little bit to run a bit smoother. So we were trying to sort of push our sub length to a little bit longer. We'd started off at sort of 1 minute, 2 minutes, and we were around about 6 minutes now. And this is about 2.5 hours of data. And this was using the Canon 600D, but it's modified. So obviously that allows all spectrums of light to come through. And we used Reese's hydrogen alpha filters again, which we borrowed from him. And it can come out just red. I think it depends on the way you process it. I quite like a peachy colour, so a lot of my images you'll see have sort of a peachy tone to it. But we sort of felt like we were still pushing our subs. We were stretching the time we were doing, but we were still getting a noisy image that we were okay with, but we wanted more and we wanted to do better, and we sort of realized we'd hit the peak for us of what we were getting out of our equipment. So we decided to switch up and buy a different telescope and a dedicated astro camera. So we went for the Skywatcher ED80, which is obviously a refracting telescope, and we went for a ZWO 294 MC Pro. So it's a one-shot color camera, so it's still basically a DSLR in a different body as it is. But before we started using that camera, we tried it out on the moon, because we thought, actually, we've not revisited the moon since really we did the dodgy one on my granddad's telescope. So we put the DSLR, the 550D, back on the Skywatcher and took actually some quite nice moons. I quite like them. All of our images of the moon are just a single image. We don't stack or take videos of the moon. Obviously this is a composite, but they're all single images of the moon. And sort of had a go at doing the mineral style moon colours and some closer up moons. And I really still like that telescope and the Canon for a moon picture. I think I far prefer it to than using the dedicated astro cameras. I feel like you get a much nicer colour with them. But we wanted to do deep sky, so we got out the new camera. And this is a cooled camera, so we can set the temperature for this, whereas all the other images we were getting a lot of noise, and a lot of that thermal noise is getting kicked out from the camera because you're running it for such long periods of time. So this camera, we can set the temperature, and all of our images that we take and that you will see moving forward had been on this camera now. And that's always set to run at -10. So it sits consistently at that temperature, and obviously reduces a lot of the noise that you've seen, so you get a much cleaner image, and obviously lots of other technical things, but it produces a nicer, smoother image. But we also bought this filter to go along with it, and it's probably one of our favourite things we've bought for the telescope. And this filter collects light in the two of the prominent lines, so it's hydrogen alpha and oxygen. And there is a little transmission graph in a few slides, but it's basically just letting a very selected part of the light through. And I've added some techie details, but it means absolutely nothing to me. But I thought Peter might be taking notes and he'd like it. So there's lots of bullet points down the side with information that means absolutely nothing, but it's part of the filter.
Thank you.
And on the telescope, this is sort of exactly the same setup as we've got. So we've got obviously the end here, the field flattener, a spacer, and then you've got your camera on the end, and the filter sort of sits in there. So that's what it looks like on our camera, and that is the same camera. So here's a little graph for you all. So the filter collects hydrogen beta, hydrogen alpha, and oxygen, but the hydrogen beta is not really, it doesn't really give out much. But when you combine it all together, it does give a slightly more natural looking image than just a hydrogen alpha image would. I feel like you get slightly more softer white tones coming through rather than that red and black. But I chose this filter for a reason, but I'll come to that later, because now we've started using the dedicated astro camera, we've started to use calibration frames. And I mentioned it earlier, but calibration frames can get technical. In fact, me and Johnny had a huge argument about it a couple of days ago, because I said, how would you explain it simply? And it was like, well, you can't really. And that ended up being a, a full-blown fight. So we just said, you know what, I'm going to stick in a chart and you can read it. But obviously you can go back and play this part. I'm not going to read it to you, but basically the calibration frames help to clean up gradients and noise and artifacts and things on your final image that aren't part of your image, but they might be just part of the way the image has been captured. And you can also see at the side of that image, there's almost like a burst of light. And a popular thing you get with these sort of cameras is it gives what they call amp glow. And there's actually you can see it here on the left of our image. So if you don't take your calibration frames and you don't add them in, you've still got this artifact on your image, which is why it's really important to use them as well. Because I know a lot of people don't choose cameras because they say, oh, it produces this amp glow like that. But as long as you're doing calibration frames, we don't see any on our final images. So the stacking process with the calibration frames removes all of that, and it doesn't appear on the final image. So with our brand new camera and telescope, we swung over to CAS and went for one of my favourite nebulas. We do galaxies and things, by the way. I haven't included every image we've ever taken because we'd be here forever. I've just sort of done them in order and took a few out. But my favourite nebula is IC 1805, which is the Heart Nebula. And this was with the Ellen Hans filter. And I think we were really impressed with this. It's I think it was the first time we felt like we were stepping onto the proper amateur astronomer, astrophotographer train. And what I really like about the filter that we were using is how versatile it is. So because it's collecting hydrogen alpha and oxygen, you can either stack like this and you'll get an RGB image that comes out from your sort of one-shot color camera, or during the stacking process, because now we've switched away from Deep Sky Stacker and we started to use AstroPixel Processor. And in AstroPixel Processor, it allows you to extract just the hydrogen and you can extract just the oxygen and end up with two stacks of just pure one or the other. And with that, I looked around online and found a way to create a false Hubble palette, because I was in love with the mono images and I loved the golds and the blues, but obviously I'm not going to get that with an RGB camera. But I'd found a way to create sort of a false Hubble palette. So this is exactly the same data, just extracted and processed differently. So there was nothing else added, literally just the hydrogen taken out, the oxygen. And then what you do, and I'll show you on Photoshop at the end, is you create a synthetic green out of a blend of the two. And that just gives you just an image that you can just manipulate the colors easier, and you can create this false palette like the Hubble. So that was our very, very first light with our new scope and new camera. And then we hopped over to Cygnus and we'd had a look at a few of the things around there. So we'd had a look at the Western Veil, or the Witch's Broom Nebula. And I never thought I'd like this one because it just doesn't seem as cloudy and soft and gassy as the others. But actually, I think it's a really interesting part of the sky when you look at it, and you should be able to tell now the background's less noisy than the DSLR images were, and the stars are less draggy and oval shaped. So we were slowly making progress and getting somewhere that we wanted to now. At least things seem to be going forward. Then we've got one of the SODA regions. So this was 5 hours of data, but again, using the L-enhanced filter and doing a false Hubble so I could get a few more different tones out of it. And then, of course, we had to go back to Orion because it was winter again. So that's all we're looking for. So we were going back for the horse head. We were hungry for the horse. And we took 5 hours on this one with 300-second subs. And again, using the L-enhanced filter. So it's that I've got that peachy tone that I've played with because you can get more of a natural image. But then this, I vividly remember this because we were at my parents' house. Our house was being built and we had to move out. And things were all going wrong with the house. And we sort of said, even though there was a full moon, we wanted to get the scope out and do something we enjoyed because we just wanted some sense of normality. So it was a whacking full moon. The neighbours at my parents had some sort of football pitch-sized security light that was just pointing at us. But we went for it anyway. And actually, I was quite surprised with what we got. But then the next night we went back and Johnny said, because the moon was so full, let's just try shooting in hydrogen alpha, because obviously that blocks out a lot of it. So we went and captured an hour of HA and added it on top. But now I was dealing with a HA from the night before, an O3 from the night before, and another HA from the following night. And I sat for a while and I wasn't quite sure what to do because this wasn't something I'd had before. So what I did was I thought, well, if it was a mono camera, the HA, the pure HA would have been green. So I coloured that green, I coloured the other HA red and the oxygen blue. And I ended up with this pastel horsehead nebula, but actually I'd never seen one like that before. And I think that made me like it even more because I'm probably a little bit strange. So I quite like things that are different. And it actually became, I think, one of our favourite images we've ever taken. In fact, this is the only image we've got framed and up in our house. And so that was 6 hours total, 5 hours with the L-enhanced the night before and 1 hour the following night. And we went back to the Rosette Nebula. So we had another go and I was pleased this one turned out much nicer than the one before, and it didn't look like it was printed on material. And obviously we were edging into 10-minute subs now, so all that time we're sort of just increasing the length that we can go for. And this was 5 hours worth, again with the L-enhanced Optolong filter. We went over to Cepheus and did the North American Nebula again. That's it. Sorry, Cygnus. I don't know where Cepheus has come from. Cygnus. And we took 2 hours and 10 minutes on this, and I was really impressed actually because it was sort of just a tester and it turned out really, really well. And I think this is a really good example of this was an RGB image, yet you can give it that gold and blue Hubble style look without having to spend ridiculous amounts on a mono camera. Of course, if I had the choice, I would have both, but it's a really good filter to get just to be able to have that flexibility. And then we went over to Auriga and did the Flaming Star. And this was captured over 3 nights. We had a really good run of clear nights in January this year. So this was between the 15th and the 20th, and it was 9.9 hours. And I don't know, I feel like we should have had more for 9 hours, but there's actually a lot there when you look. But we've never done this one before. We've not revisited it. So hopefully next year, maybe we can go and have another go on it. And then we got really lucky because I got contacted by a lady who said she was from Optolong, and I was a little bit dubious at first that I'd got this email and was it real? And she said she wanted us, she'd seen our images and she liked them and she wanted us to try some filters. And she said she'd send over a sulfur filter, a hydrogen filter, an oxygen filter, and a set of LRGB filters. And I sort of politely said, oh, yeah, thank you. That's so lovely. Still feeling a little bit dubious whether I wanted to hand over my address to a lady in China. And I said, thank you, but I don't have a mono camera. I've only got a one-shot color camera. So, you know, the other filters are no good to me, but I can try a hydrogen alpha filter, and I can try a bit of the oxygen filter, because I know we'd done that on a similar dual band filter. And I said, but it's sort of summer. So when, you know, how long do I get to use them, and how do I send them back? Because I'm not going to get much in summer because the nights are so light. And she sort of said, oh no, they're yours, you can keep them. So I went downstairs and told Johnny that I'd just turned down a full set of £2,000 worth of filters, and he was like, you idiot. But that's me, I can't lie. And you know, I knew we didn't have a mono camera, but he was like, they're like £400 each. But you never know, if I get a different camera, she might send some more. So these next few images are literally what we've been taking in the last sort of few months, really, using the Optilong filters. And these are really narrow, these ones. As you can see, there's a nice little graph at the bottom for you. So we went over to Cygnus again, and we tried the Eastern Veil. And this was, I think, around 3 hours, I've said, of total integration time. But we were also having a look at a telescope like we were trying to clean. There's a Williams Optics FLT 132 that's got fungus on it. So nobody wanted it, nobody would take it. But we said, you know, we'd have a look and we'd see if we could expose it to some UV light and sort of stop the fungus growing and see how it performs. And so far we've not come across any artifacts that it's caused a problem with. So this was using those two filters, but again, not for this image, but for some of the other images, I've also blended and made a synthetic green. We had a look at the Tulip Nebula, which is always pretty, but I wasn't entirely happy with this one. I want to revisit this when we can. That was about 4 hours, 3 hours on the HA and 1 hour on the O3. And then I believe you'll have seen this one, because I think I sent it in to Roy. The Crescent Nebula, which I've always hated, but actually now we've done it, I'm warming to it. I always thought it was a really ugly image. But actually I'm warming to it now, and that's 8 hours of total integration time. So to sort of round up this little section, just to sort of say from then to now, sort of, it was, I thought we'd go back and I'd just choose a few and put sort of the side-by-sides of where we started until where we've got to. So that's 2019 versus 2021. And then the North American Nebula, which was a 2020 image and a 2021 image. The Rosette, so 2020 versus this year, 2022. I don't ever want to see that again. After I've done this talk, I'm deleting that image. I don't ever want to see it again. And I said we did do galaxies, so we did go back and do Andromeda. And that was 2019 versus 2021. And I'm guessing we're going to have another go this year when it gets dark enough. And of course, Orion, the thing we all wait for. We did go back and we did do Orion this year. I still don't think we're finished with it, but we did go back. And so that's basically our journey and where we've got to for now. Like I said, I didn't put loads of techie detail in. It was more just a share of where we are, and I'm going to hop over and I will show you how I take an image and process it. So let's come out of this, and can you see Photoshop now? Is that all good?
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that people use, like AstroPixel processor and PixInsight, all of those processing softwares, they do have automatic stretchers and things in there for you. So a lot of people will probably get their stack and kick out a stretch. But I prefer to start from scratch. I prefer to do all the stretching myself. I don't know if I'm a bit of a control freak. Ask the TAs in my classroom, they'll probably say yes. Ask my husband, he's nodding. So I like to just have a bit of control. And I think sometimes if something's pre-stretched, if you've already lost something, you can't get that back. So I prefer to do it myself, and then I can sort of slowly go up or down. Can you turn the light off, please? Because I normally process in the dark, so I'm going to be in a sort of a cave now. And I like to start with the oxygen first, and there is a reason for that. And it's not a technical reason. It's normally the oxygen layer is more disappointing than the hydrogen alpha. So if I start with the oxygen and it looks okay, I get more excited for the other one. So the image comes out as a TIFF. So this is the oxygen stack. And I'm not going to do it really slowly because this is it's not obviously a how to process, but I will just process it at my speed. And if anybody wants to do another Zoom at another time, it doesn't have to be at this time, anytime. I'm happy to just have a processing Zoom where we can all get together and ask questions, and I will slowly go through what I'm doing, but I'm aware of the time. So I'm going to do it fast without sort of going into too much detail of what I'm clicking and where. So it comes out as a grayscale image. So I just need to change it to an RGB, and I'll do that on both before I forget. And go back to the oxygen. So I'm just going to start by stretching, and you'll see how quickly, and this is a North America set, by the way. So I sort of go for the curves, and again, this isn't the way to do it. This is just how I do it. I'm sure lots of people do lots of different things. But I go for this boomerang shape. So as long as I've got a boomerang, I just keep stretching somewhere in and around the data. And I'll keep going, keep stretching. And then in a second, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to open up the levels. And you can see now I'm going to bring those levels down, but I don't like to go too close. Just give yourself a bit of room. Back to curves. So I'm just going to keep doing curves and levels. So I'm not going to tell you every time I'm doing it, but curves and levels until I've got a piece of data that's stretched enough. I'm carefully keeping an eye on the stars, because obviously if you blow out the stars, you can't get them back. And you can see the data starting to fray a little bit here. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, but I am going to stop stretching that there and leave that at that. And I'm going to do exactly the same on the hydrogen alpha image. So I'll stretch and keep going. You can have a break from my voice for a minute. Not you, you're married to it, you have to. You have no choice. It's written in your vows, you signed up for this life. Right.
It's a forgery.
I know, here you can get really quick divorces these days, like no contest, you just say, yep, no foul. Right, so there we go. So roughly, obviously I'm doing this at a quicker pace, just for the sake of not keeping you all here too long. And they're about the same sort of darkness. The background on one isn't any darker than the other. So I've now got a hydrogen and an oxygen, but I need to make a third layer, which is a blend of the two. So I'm just going to copy and paste that layer and open up a new section. I'm going to pop in the hydrogen alpha, and then I'm going to pop in the oxygen as well. And obviously now you can see they're both in there together. I like to keep the hydrogen alpha on top, because that's the way I do it. And when I do a blend, it depends on the target, but I use usually anywhere between about 12% hydrogen alpha to anywhere up to 20. I think for this one, and you just want it to look slightly different. You don't want it to look like the oxygen. You don't want it to look like the hydrogen alpha. You want it to just be somewhere in the middle. So that'll be about okay, I think, for what we want to do. And now, because these are grayscale, I'm treating it like it's mono data. So I'm going to colorize them. If you were actually using mono data, then normally the hydrogen alpha would be green, the sulfur would be red, and the oxygen would be blue. But obviously we don't have a sulfur layer. So for this one, we're going to leave the hydrogen alpha as red. Not like that. We're going to leave the hydrogen alpha as red. We're going to leave the oxygen as blue. And the new blend is going to be our synthetic green. So I'm going to use hue and saturation and colorize them. So this is the red layer. You put lightness to -50-ish. And that's that layer done. Then you go to the oxygen, do the same, colorize it to blue. -50-ish. And then our blend of the two together is going to be our synthetic green. Not on that though. Too busy fast clicking. And I like my green to be more, I don't like the green to overwhelm, so I go for a slightly more yellow green, but colour in astrophotography is all, you know, it's preference. I'm surprised Peter's not said it's all rubbish yet. And it's not the actual colour that it should be. But it's all about preference. And there's a fine line between art and science. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all of these layers. I can see Peter smiling, it's making me laugh. I'm going to take all of these layers and I'm going to put them all in one picture together. So I'll put them all on the green. So there goes the hydrogen alpha. And there goes the oxygen. And you just change these blend modes to lighten. And you should see you get a natural looking image. So I've not got that just flat hydrogen alpha red. You've got these subtle different tones that you can now work with. And for some images, you might need to change the opacity of it. You might want to bring it down a little bit because the green's a little bit overwhelming. But this image is actually, it's okay. So I'm going to just flatten all that. And now I've got my image to work with. So that's how I colorize it. So when I've been explaining about the false Hubble palettes, this is sort of, that's the process I do before I get to that with all of my images. When I'm doing it myself, I would probably be doing some noise reductions before I'd combined them all to try and minimize it and things like that. But like I said, I'm not withholding any information from you. There's a lot that I do that I don't have time to show you, but I'm more than happy to do another session another day at any time with anyone. So now we've got our image combined, we can start to stretch it a bit more, or we can reduce the stars. So the top sort of tools that I always use are, there's a really easy star reduction, selective color, which I'll show you, a little bit of masking for selective sharpening. And I think that's about it, but you'll see as we go what I'm doing. So it's still a little bit, it could do with a little bit more stretching. Now I could do more on the curves, but actually I'm just going to have a look at the exposure. And if you just knock this up a little bit and knock the gamma up again. Now, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like on your screen because my screen, I'm currently having to hook up to a computer and a TV because my monitor calibration color is awful. So hopefully it doesn't look too off on your screen. But if I flick on and off, you should be able to see it's just punched out the data a little bit in the middle. I could have stretched it more, but I don't want to do too much without interrupting the stars. And again, sometimes now I'm a little bit further along with the processing, I'll remove the stars before I process, so I can manipulate the gas and everything behind it and without affecting the stars. And then after I've finished processing, I'll lay the stars back on the top. And that allows you to do that, and you can still work on all of the dust behind it without overstretching your stars. So I do sometimes just click an auto color because you never know. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I don't quite like it this time, so I'm not going to use it. But it is worth it sometimes because it can balance out some of those weird colors if you want to have a look. Color-wise, you can change the colors and change sort of the gradient that the different gases lean towards with selective color. So I like mine to be quite a hubbly golden, yellow and blue sort of look. So I literally spend ages dragging these sliders up and down and up and down, and then change from the red to the yellows and do the same thing, and just seeing where I want them to sit. And I'm not going to spend ages doing this. I'll just have to sort of get it roughly and move on, which will kill me really, but I'm going to have to do it. And you can just see the changes it has. There's not really much blue and other colours in here, but if you had really magenta stars or something, say, you could open up the magenta and bring the levels down and it would get rid of those magenta stars. So you can also slightly, now you've tweaked with the colour, you can use the channel mixer as well to also bring out a slightly more Hubble blue tone to it. But again, you have to sort of go steadily, and it's all your own preference. But you've just got to sort of have a play around and see what you like. I like that it's added more blue, but I feel like the background is a little bit too blue now. So to colour balance the background, you can just go to Image, Adjustments and Colour Balance. And here you can actually just pick the shadows. So I'm going to click to shadows, and I want to reduce the cyan. So I'm going to move it slightly away from that end. And I'm also going to move it slightly away from the blue, because obviously cyan and blue, it's in the same sort of colour area. And if I click on and off, you can see it's reduced it a little bit. I could maybe do it more, but there you go. So again, if I wanted to manipulate more of the midtones and add more in certain places, you can click around. I also don't save my layers. I know lots of people have their entire history. If I'm happy, I do sort of commit and flatten and move on. Because otherwise I think you can spend ages going back and forth and back and forth. I would go in and out again. I would be constantly going in and out of selective colour and slowly changing and tweaking, because I do want that golden sort of browny structure. And I'd just be going in, and I can do this 1,000 times with an image all the way through. I don't sort of get to a colour and stop and never come back to it. It's always it's always there, being annoying. So I would be doing that with colour until you're happy with the colour that you've got. To do a star reduction, because I'm quite a sod for also removing a lot of the stars, there's a really simple way to do a star reduction. And if you go to Select, Colour Range, and the highlights, it might be on sampled colours, but if you just make sure it's on highlights, I don't even really play with the sliders too much. I've got it to sort of where I want it now. And if I click OK, it'll highlight all of those, the highest, the whitest points, which are obviously our stars. Now, we want to just expand the range of that to make sure they do cover the entire selection of the stars. So we go to Select and Modify and just click Expand. And the sort of rule we go by with this is expand by a number and then feather by half of that number. Now 4 has always worked. I've only had to use 6 once, and I think that was a really close-up cropped image, and the stars were a lot more prominent and larger. But 4 I use for every image I do. So I expand by 4, and then you go back to Select and Modify and down to Feather. And because I've expanded by 4, I'm going to half it and feather by 2, because we don't just want a round cut, we want it to sort of look more natural. And you can see they've all selected them, but just so it's easy for you to see, I'm going to hide that selection. It's still there. If I put it back on, it's still there, but I'm just hiding the boundary marks so you can see the difference. So then now they're selected. If you go to Filter and Other and over to Minimum, 2 is very heavy. I would normally use 1, but I'm just doing it to show you how powerful it can be. You don't really want to go higher, because if you go higher, you're going to start to get black indents. You're taking away too much. So 1 or 2 at best is fine. And you can see there the star reduction. It's really smooth, actually, to say it, it's not a prepaid tool action. It's just within Photoshop itself. I do have a star removal exterminator that I paid, I think, £40 or £60 for, but this is simple and does the job. And you can decide if that's too much. You can always change the opacity and put a little bit back in, so you can choose how much stars you want to take or leave. And then obviously you've still got them selected, so make sure you deselect, otherwise you're only going to have those. So that's a nice little star reduction. Within Photoshop, you've also got Camera Raw filter, and that's really, really useful for all sorts, like noise reduction and just tweaking the colors. There's a lovely color mixer section, but I think I wanted it to be a slightly more blue, so I just switched that on, because Steve is falling asleep now. Do we need to play some music, Steve? I feel like we need some Benny Hill music on to wake you up. Do you know what? I sit and watch Steve fall asleep in all of the talks, though, so I don't feel so bad. So you can play with any of these.
It's not your fault.
You can tweak the blacks and sort of make them stand out more. It's completely up to you. All these sliders do so many different things. The shadows. Dehaze is a nice one, because it takes away, you can see that kind of glow. If you go the other way, you can just sort of take that slight white film that you can sometimes get. Let's just stick up a bit of vibrance and saturation. And there's the detail section where you can play with noise reduction. I always put up the sharpening a little bit, but if I show you sort of the extreme, it smooths out. Obviously you lose all the detail, but that's right at the other end. You can just play with a little bit of it. And some color noise reduction you can play with on there. But you've also got the color mixer. So here you've literally got hue, where you can tweak and change the hues to where you want it to be. Probably want mine to be a little bit more golden. And yeah, literally you've got so much. But a really nice one of this is the luminance. And I didn't find out about this until probably last year. But you can literally almost add like a glow. It sort of enhances the luminance within that color. Some don't do anything, that's why I sort of go through them all, but you can see it just sort of makes that Cygnus wall pop a little bit. And you can also click that and see a side-by-side image of where you started and where you finished, which is pretty cool. I don't really touch the rest of the stuff. I can't see the button because I need to move. There we go. Move the zoom controls out. So you can sort of just see, if I click on and off, I've just made it slightly more blue. And if I show you, I talked about masking. So masking is a tool that I use all the time, because sometimes you want to stretch certain areas but not all areas, or you might want to sharpen some areas but not all areas. So one of my favorite selective sharpening tools to use is something called a high pass. And if you go to filter, other, and high pass, you get this sort of grey embossed image, and you want to play with the slider bar until you sort of see the outlines of what you want. So that's too much. I sort of just want around there. If you go too far, it doesn't give you the desired effect. So as long as you can see sort of the outlines of the things you're wanting to bring out, and you click OK, but obviously it's still grey. So down here you've got a mask button. If I click white, click on it, it's just going to come up with a white mask. That's not the mask you want to use. So you want to hold Alt and click and you get a black mask. And now what that's done is it's put the original layer over the top and everything underneath has got the new effect on it. So we're going to brush out the areas where we want the new effect and the rest will stay as it is. So we've got to change the blend mode to overlay and then just go in with the brush. And I'll try and zoom in a little bit. Is it going to do it? It's been really temperamental today. There we go. And and I never draw, I never like paint something in. If I'm doing selective anything, I'm always sort of tapping and clicking. And you can see I'm selectively bringing out the areas that I want to bring out. So I like all these sort of dark areas to pop out, and it just allows you to bring a little bit more depth to your image because it makes it feel almost like the Cygnus wall is sort of, you know, above all of this, and you feel like you can see the layers and bits to it. So let me just zoom out a little bit. And because I've done a selective mask, I never want to see edges of where I've sharpened something. So whenever I do any sort of mask, I always blur it off with a Gaussian blur because it just softens the impact of where it finishes. So if I zoom out, you'll see the parts that are in white in the middle are going to be 100% affected by what I've just done. The parts in grey are 50 and so on. So you can see it softens off the edge. It's not just going to give you a lined finish. So you're never ever going to see, you know, a line of where you've sharpened one area. So if I click on and off, hopefully you can see the sharpened areas now stand out. So that's, but you know, the rest is still soft and gassy. So that's probably one of my most used tools. And again, you can use that mask for anything. You could selectively stretch an area, but then just bring out that stretch. You could do lots of different things. I'm just looking on anything else. Really, I would just now be going back and forth between the colors now. I would just be spending time trying to get rid of that blue in the background of my image. And I would just be playing on selective color and again just going through and tweaking it until it looks like what I want it to look like. So it's basically that in a nutshell. And you can obviously see that we started with a black image, which started off looking like that. And obviously now you've stretched it and brought it all out. And I don't think it took too long, about 20 minutes. And then there you go. And that's basically sort of where I was going to finish it. I don't want to ram any more astrophotography or anything down everybody's throat. So I hope it was nice to look at, if anything. And if you can turn the light back on so I'm not sat in darkness, that's about it.
Very good.
So I hope you enjoyed it. And if there are any questions, Techie Johnny's obviously here in case there's anything more telescopy tech rather than processing. He's sitting here next to the drum kit. So if there are any questions on any of the setup or anything else, then please feel free. And if anybody does want to do a Zoom and actually go into more detail of what's happening, then like I said, just send me an email and that's fine.
Very good.
Right.
Anybody, any questions?
Yes, please. Ian here.
Hello, Ian.
Hi there, Rachel. Yeah, there are a couple of things. I noticed in a couple of the images that you had there, you were using the ASI, and on some of them you were using a gain of 120, and on others 128. Now,
Yeah.
when I've got the same camera, And when I looked at the data on it, it said that you get extra noise reduction if the gain is greater than 120.
Mm.
So
I know we stick to 120 now, don't we? That's
Originally, we tried, I can't remember what it was, 121 because of the stats. It said 121 was the optimal gain.
yes,
But when trying it on our camera, that's why we use 120 now. 121 is slightly more noisier than 120. I don't understand the one difference.
no,
we have played around a little bit, but for a long time now we pretty much image on 120.
yeah. And well, I couldn't understand what they were telling me when I looked up that about the camera, about the gain, because I have got it up on my other screen at the moment, and it says HCG mode will be on when gain is higher than 120. Read noise will drop below 2 electrons, but same dynamic range. So it sounded to me as though over the 121 therefore, or as you had on some of yours 128, should give better performance. But I don't understand that bit, the HGC mode or anything.
I think we're probably the same. I think that's why we stuck at 120, and that's why it was so hard to do this talk, because everybody's gear is different, and there would be no point me telling you exactly what gear we use, because unless you've got it, it's no use to you. And I think everybody has a different performance level that they stick at. That's their little zone of comfortability. But we've been happy with 120. Like I said, we tried 121 and we weren't as happy, so we went back to 120, and that is what we've stuck at for a good year, I would say now.
That's interesting. That I wonder whether, because what it doesn't say, it says if when gain is higher than 120. Now whether they mean when it's 120 and higher, or whether it's 121 and higher, I don't know. I've not found out about that, but
I'll have to ask around. I'll ask around people and see if they.
When I was googling that.
Yeah, I think like all astrophotography, you Google something and you end up with so many. I think you're more confused than when you went in.
Yeah,
and you end up probably out of pocket and you've bought something. So yeah, I think probably.
Well,
but,
Trevor knows all the stuff I've been having with my SEM60, and trying to find out information from Ioptron and things like that, and it's a nightmare really. Yeah, okay, but thank you very much for that. That was very interesting. And what I would like to say is, wow, how quickly you've gone from your first image to something I'd die for. I tell you, really, I really.
Like I said, we're good. The fact that we work together. So Johnny is very good at setting up the telescope. We don't have a permanent setup. We don't have an observatory or anything. We carry it out. And we carry it out. I'll be looking at me. I can feel the eyes on me. We carry it out. I sometimes carry the weights, sometimes, and the cable bag. It's all mine. And he sets it up, and he can have it polar aligned and pretty much ready to go now in about 12-15 minutes, which is pretty good. And then we're off and we're imaging, and so he's really good at all of that. I'm more. I tell him what we're doing in the sky. I'll say where it is, what we're aiming for, what we're going to go for, and then obviously I do all the processing side. So I think together, we're okay, because I think a lot of people, they're either good at setting it up, but maybe less confident on the processing, or you've got people that are confident on the processing, but maybe not so much confident with the gear. So because there's the two of us, we sort of both have strengths where the other one probably doesn't. So we work quite well together. And he is the silent party. He doesn't. I always put his name on everything when I submit it to magazines and things, but he likes to claim he's the unheard party. It's his small violin, but he wouldn't come on. I said, you can come and sit next to me tonight, and he was like, no. It's his own fault. But no, thank you very much.
You need to swing the camera around onto him. So,
I can see it. I can see it. You can do it. I can't find it smaller than.
there he is. Well done. Well done.
But yeah. So thank you very much, Ian.
No, not at all.
Thank you.
And anybody, any more questions? Yeah.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you very much for sharing your journey. It's always very interesting to see where people have come from and where they are now, especially some of the image manipulation techniques. There's some there I haven't even thought about. Bit of a strange question, and don't read anything into it, please. You obviously work.
Yes.
Okay. Astrophotography takes a long time on a night time. Okay. And most of the time it's set up and go. Basically, you run a few test images, you set it up, and you get your images running. Okay. What do you do in all that time? Because I do a very similar thing, and I tend to work, and now I'm bored of working at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. Okay, and I'm quite interested what people do during that sort of dead space whilst their run's going.
Well, I say,
Well, some people play gaming consoles, so that's almost two of them. Yeah,
well, as
well,
John-
I'm not. I don't want to read anything into it.
I mean, as Johnny's just said, I go to sleep and I leave him, and then he goes and wakes me up to help him tidy it up later. But we're pretty confident now that we just leave it running and go about as normal. Like
Unless the weather looks.
unless the weather's sketchy, then obviously we don't really want to leave all of our gear outside. We're not going to risk it. But most of the time, we just live your normal life. Most of those images we've taken, in fact, the Crescent Nebula one, I believe, we'd actually set up the run. We left it there. We went to Austerfield, we opened up for the public, we did a public family night and had 18 people over from the public with their kids. And whenever it was for the Perseids, we did a shooting star party. So we pretty much left it running, went over to Austerfield at 8:30 when it got dark enough, set the run off, and we did it all remotely. We don't use an ASIF Pro, but what Johnny has done is he's programmed a Raspberry Pi 4B, which costs £25 compared to the extortionate prices that the Air is, and it does the same thing. It's some things are slightly different that we can't do with it, but it's not stopped us capturing. So everything is literally remotely, and we go off and we do our own thing, and he can set it off by his phone and he can turn it off by his phone. And then, like we said, if it's clear and we trust it, we'll throw a blanket over it, and 3 a.m. in the morning the caps are on, blankets on, and then we go back to bed. If it's looking dodgy, then we do get up at 3 in the morning and pack it all up and carry it all inside. We are looking at getting an observatory roll-off roof sort of thing in the garden, but we'd had some personal loss and personal grief that sort of put us on hold for a little bit, but I think we're getting back on track to focusing on it again. But obviously now we're all worried about energy bills and money, and it's, should we really be building a wooden shed when we might be getting charged thousands in gas and electric? So it might be waiting a little bit longer, but at the minute, yeah, we just fill our time with that. I mean, I'm usually planning and working on lessons till most nights till 11 o'clock anyway. So I've got lots to fill my time with that I shouldn't be doing astrophotography with, and I should be doing my work with, but I'm very impatient. As soon as I've got the data, I want it now and I want it stamped. And I'm like saying to Johnny, can't you set it off now? And he's like, no, I'll do it tomorrow. And I am learning to be a little bit more patient, but yeah, we literally just set it off now and we're quite comfortable with it. It meridian flips by itself. We don't have to go and watch it and babysit it anymore. As long as the weather is safe and it's not going to sporadically rain, then we're quite confident now in leaving it outside and just getting on with our life and then coming and packing it away when it's done.
You can trust your neighbours.
Yeah, I don't trust. I live in
with our
Barnsley.
neighbours.
I don't trust my neighbours not to walk off with it just because it's not nailed down.
To be fair, this is really heavy, so you can't get away fast. But
it wouldn't stop anyone in Barnsley. I mean, just 3 people would turn up instead of just 1.
But luckily, I mean, I know people get robbed, and we do, we don't go out for too long, but I probably shouldn't be shouting about it because the windows are open. We're probably going to get robbed tonight. But we've been okay so far. We're on quite a quiet estate, and it's usually okay. But we will be getting. We've only lived here a year, so we'll be getting some CCTV and things put up. But we don't really worry too much about it. I think it would only be stored in the kitchen, and our kitchen's got a big glass fronted sort of bay seating area. So if people are going to want to come in, they're only going to smash my house to come in and rob me anyway. So I'd rather them take the scope and not smash my house up and just take it from the garden.
Yeah.
At least they can't steal everything else as well. They'll just have the scope.
Well, actually, scopes are rather special things. They're not the sort of thing you can sell down the pub. So I suspect it needs somebody who knows what they're on about if they're going to steal a telescope.
Are they waiting for scrap?
Oh, well.
That's the thing. They'd
Rachel-
probably Google it and they'd sell it for about £100, thinking, "Oh, we can make a bit of money here," and you're thinking that's like a £4,000 scope.
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you very much for a very interesting talk. Question about exposure times.
Yeah.
So the mantra usually is lots of short exposures, and yet you're pushing out your exposure time now. Did you say 20 minutes at one stage?
No, 10. 10 is our max, really. Yeah.
So what are the benefits of if you're able to guide like that? What's the benefits over taking shorter exposures?
I think lots of people say shorter because obviously they're thinking it's less noise that you're gathering and you're still getting data, but obviously you're filling your bucket with light for a lot longer than you are if you're doing a short one. Obviously there's a period where you're going to surpass that and it's now going to be sort of no use and you've sort of hit a maximum, but the more data you can gather that's faint, that you're simply not going to capture in that short amount of time, you're capturing that longer data. So it depends on the target. A lot of them that we said, it's 10 minutes, but then if you look at what we did with Orion will have been 3-minute subs with also a combination of 30-second subs and 10-second subs, because you've got that trapezium in the middle and that's going to blow out straight away. So you need to counter for all those things. Same with Andromeda, you need the core controlling, so that needs a completely different length of exposure. But the only time we've ever done short exposures is galaxies.
Because we're using 3 nanometer hydrogen alpha filters. At 20 seconds, you're not picking up a star.
The filters that we've got from Optilong, obviously now the 3 nanometer ones, they're so narrow, you need to give it more time to let things in. You're not going to let a lot in, but there is a lot of people saying, "Oh, instead of doing a 10-minute sub, why don't you do 10 1-minute subs?" But like I said, you
hard drive space.
Yeah, hard drive space for one and other things, but you do capture. It does reveal more the longer you are capturing. You are allowing more in to a certain extent than short ones. But
so to sum that up, then what you're saying is that because you're using such tight filters, you need to push out that exposure.
Yes.
Yes, but we've also done it with less tight.
Well, it started because I modified the mount and I wanted to push the mount.
We wanted to test the mount because our mount, we were having drag and a weird issue. So Johnny had changed it and he wanted to sort of see, well, how hard can we push the mount and get a decent enough image. So it started with that, but it just worked fine. But I mean, we've only been using these filters since June, the new tight ones, and we've always done 10 minutes for quite a long time before that, even with just the L enhanced, which isn't as narrow.
It's always been 5 minutes.
Has it?
5 minutes up until
so we shoot anywhere between 5 and 10, but as far as if you've got a dedicated astro camera, unless we're doing a galaxy or something that like Orion, that seriously needs to be controlled. Sometimes with the horse head, because Alnitak can be quite aggressive. If you overblow Alnitak, you've sort of lost. You've lost it. But yeah, with the L enhance, most of the subs have been 5 minutes, and that just seems to be a nice number. I just think you allow that little bit more light to pass through. You've got that little bit more light gathering time. But I do know a lot of people have, your sky quality obviously depends what sort of sky class you're in. If you're obviously in somewhere that's got a lot of light pollution, then I'm guessing you know shorter exposures are going to be better because you're not going to gather all that light pollution and overdo the sky. Whereas if you're in a really dark sky, you can get away with opening it up and shooting longer because you've not got all the extra stuff pouring in. But we've never gone for lots of short ones. We've always gone between 3, 5, 10 if we're using the really narrow ones, but 5 seems to be a sweet.
It's because we learned from Sean, isn't it?
A sweet number, yeah.
CCD.
But I think again, it just depends who you've who you've sort of magpied ideas from, and like I said, you can Google it, and gosh, you're going to be lost in a argument on a cloudy nights forum where everybody's getting irate at each other, and actually you all just want to chill out and take nice pictures together, and there's people saying you must do it this way. So I would never say our way is the only way. It's just what we've sort of found works for us. And if it helps other people, then great. And if not, then you know there will be something different that works for your sky and your gear.
Okay, thank you.
Ian, you've got a question.
Yeah, please. Again, sorry about this, Rachel. When you started processing the North America nebula, you imported TIFF files.
Yeah.
Where'd you get those from? Because my camera exports FITs.
It is FITs. It comes out as a FITs, but then
Yes, so the individual photos are FITs files from your camera.
Yeah.
I stack them in AstroPixel processor.
Oh, yes.
People use Deep Sky Stacker, but I export from there into TIFF to allow Rachel to edit in Photoshop.
Right. Right.
And just a personal preference of what file you would like it to export.
yeah, you can export it. It's just a 16-bit TIFF. Because I don't think Photoshop opens FITs files, does it?
No.
So it's just what Photoshop can handle. I know everybody's sort of in the PixInsight rave at the minute, but I really like Photoshop, and I'm happy with paying £9 a month. Like, you know, I spend a lot more on rubbish than £9 a month, and I use it a lot. So for me, I'm happy with it, and I wouldn't move away to PixInsight unless I absolutely had to. But yeah, it was just the file that Photoshop handles.
Photoshop will open FITs if you add. You have to download an add-on, don't you?
Yeah,
And
I think you can do, but it literally, it's just like a save as option, isn't it? You can just export it as a TIFF. That's what it does.
Yeah, but I like the idea of the sound of that AstroPixel processor where you can separate out those channels.
There's a free download of it that I think it's 60 or 90 days, something quite long.
Yeah, there's a trial. We had a month trial, and actually,
I personally really like it.
We used it quite a few times, didn't we? We just used a few different of our email addresses and had a few free trials. I was like, Mum, can we use your address? Dad, can I use yours? But we do use that. But I know if people use PixInsight also has a channel, a manipulator where you can extract things like that as well. But obviously, I don't use that.
No.
But yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
We've got another question from the room.
Hi Rachel, it's Tony.
Hello.
I think we'll call that the Rachel palette from now on, shall we?
Yeah, you could call it a fubble instead of false hubble. I've called it a fubble palette, but you can call it what you like.
Yeah, cheers. So the program's called Fix Liberator, which is the plugin for Photoshop.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. You're best trying to work with Fix because your camera embeds a lot of header information in the Fix. So the temperature.
Yeah.
And depending on your ASCOM drivers, it'll give you your right ascension and declination, observer, latitude and longitude. So all that information is thrown away on conversion to TIFF. So if you're going to do data mining, you've lost all your data. Okay.
Cool.
That's just
thank you. Yeah, we didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you go to AstroPixel Processor and PixInsight, they maintain all that data.
Yeah.
So even when you've done stacking, you will get the total stack time.
Okay.
In your fixed header.
Yeah, he says it does it in seconds.
It's a very powerful tool then.
Oh, awesome. I will tell me what the name is again. I'll write it down.
Okay, so can I just another comment, if I may?
Go, yeah, please do.
You know when you originally open up your TIFF files and you do what you call your boomerang?
Yes.
Stage. Well, that is equivalent of a film stretch.
Uh-huh.
You know that, so it's called a D65 stretch,
Yeah.
and you destroy your CCD linearity when you do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So I really enjoy your images, Rachel, but you're actually compressing some of your data when you do that.
All right. So I need to have a look at a.
Yeah.
Which-
So
which-
in the very early days, Rachel, maybe even before you were born, some of the early astro processing software,
Yeah.
people didn't know how to process CCD images. You could get these D65 plugins to make them look like film images. And
Right.
it had that kind of boomerang curve.
Uh-huh.
So D65 is actually the chemicals that we used to give the processing curve.
Oh,
And
wow.
it just
Okay.
so happens that you've rediscovered that. Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that you're compressing the top end of your data.
So what sort of stretch should I be doing, do you think?
Well, I would suggest a more
Like an S curve
gentle,
or
with no elbows in it.
so more of a gradient line slope?
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
I'm not as good as your processing, but I'm just saying that.
oh
you
no,
know,
I'm always happy to try anything. So like I said, I'm just reiterating the way I copied from someone else. You know, it was actually like I said, Sean Reynolds who showed me. So anybody, I'm always willing to try new things and learn because yeah, I don't think you ever stop. So no, it's really interesting. Thank you.
no.
But how, Tony, how, if you're doing a sort of straight line stretch, something's got to give, surely, because you're trying to get the very faint data great enough to be visible on the screen. So surely you've got to lose something at the top end, haven't you?
No. So I'm a PixInsight user, so you can't blame me for that, but I do use PixInsight. So when I'm doing histogram stretches or any curve stretches, because they're actually the different entities, you can actually, PixInsight will tell you where your clipping's occurring.
Yeah.
So whether you're clipping your top end pixels, like Rachel was saying, trying to maintain the star colours,
Yeah.
because they're a devil to keep the star colours. You know, you've got to watch out for the top end of the curve or the extreme right on the histogram. So it's actually stretching them out without clipping that's the key. Whether you use, I'm using my hands here, it's pointless since you can't see me. So whether you use the histogram stretch or a curve stretch, it's all about not clipping the top and bottom. I was watching you.
Yeah, it tells you how many pixels you're losing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
As you do it.
Yeah. So you might have seen a guy's website, Harry's Astro Shed.
Yeah.
Right. So Harry came here to do us a PixInsight forum. And we had a day's processing with Harry. And he went through all these techniques, and some of them I've forgot now. But he was always very careful on what he did with any stretches, whether they were logarithmic stretches, linear stretches, hyperbolic stretches, or whatever, that he didn't clip the bottom end too much, because then your nebula transitions from colour to black very quickly. And he was also very careful that he didn't overstretch the top end, because you lose your star colours. So it's all about gently pushing those curves out without getting kinks in them, as I can remember.
Yeah, I'm not a gentle processor. I'm very, very fast and loose, and I know that. And to be fair, this is a toned down.
No, it's what you do when you enjoy it, and your images are great.
This is a toned down version of me. If you used to see me about a couple of years ago, I was like banging the saturation around, and I'd have all sorts going on. No, thank you.
I'm with Ian on this. If you've got a picture which has pixels in it running all the way from 0 to 255, and you want to increase the contrast in the dark area, you're bound to decrease the contrast in the bright area. And we saw Rachel doing that. She pulls the curve up, then she pulls it down at the top. And that's what you've got to do if your data originally covers the full range. But
well, that's not true, Pete. That's not true. So if you go from 0 to 255, your mid value is 125 or 126. You can actually push the mid value up to 200. Still keep your 0 point at 0 and your high point at 255. Yeah,
Right.
you still got the same dynamic.
In which case,
range.
the contrast between what was 125 is now 200. It used to go from 125 to 255. Now it goes from 200 to 255.
Yeah, so
the contrast is reduced.
Yeah, the midpoint has changed. The overall dynamic range hasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I see what Tony means, though, Peter. You've basically put the S curve through the middle there somewhere, or stretch it through the middle and not touch either end.
Yeah, so when you've got your diagonal line on your stretch, if you're pushing up in the middle, you're pushing the mid values of your image.
And you're reducing the contrast in the bright areas and increasing it in the dark areas.
Absolutely, but your overall dynamic range is still go up to 255.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
but the contrast in the bright areas is reduced.
Making it like a film image.
So, Rachel, your beautiful photos have just started off a technical argument. Thank you very much for that.
No, but you know what? I think there's so many different views, and I think that's. Do you know what I've watched? We've got an imager in our society called Jonathan, and you know he's won so many APODs with his processing of data from Hubble and all over it. And he's an avid now PixInsight user, and his stuff's amazing, and I really respect his stuff. But I've watched him process, and my God, I was bored stiff. I process, and I'm excited, and I teach maths all day. I don't need to see the word pixel math. Just no. So anything that involves me fanning around with numbers or any words or any calculations of any kind, I'm immediately switched on.
That's a technical term. That's
it's
not what I use in education.
All the rage now, Bob.
Tom. Rachel, it's Tom. I mean, and you basically taught me how to process. So what I want to say, well, thank you for that in the first place, because I am where I am because of you, basically.
Well, thank you.
I'm quite pleased with where I got to, but I've jumped into PixInsight, and I'm now processing the same images that I did with both. I can't get close with PixInsight yet. So
I know people have said it's a steep curve, but obviously when you get to the sweet spot, it's worth it.
I think I'll get there, but at the moment, if I do it your way, I get a better image than with PixInsight. But yeah,
do you know what? I think a lot of people use PixInsight. What annoys me is everybody who bangs on about PixInsight, but then says, "Oh, but then I finish it off in Photoshop." And I'm like, well, hang on a minute. It's either the be all and end all, or it's not. It's not, But I think it's whatever you're comfortable with. And it's new and it's getting developed, and loads of people love it. And it's for astro. That is what it's dedicated for. So it's got to be good. It's got to be, it's got to do what it says. But as far as happiness, I'm much more happy in a creative slider bar, no pixel math or any kind of. And do you know what? I don't like doing actions either. And everybody I talk to with PixInsight, and it might not be for everybody, so I'm not going to generalize, but everybody I've seen, they've sort of got the bars down the side, and they're like, oh, I click this for a star reduction, I click this for a stretch, and that's like me paying for someone to watch the TV for me. This is what I enjoy, so I don't want someone to pay. I want to do the sliding, I want to do the choosing. I don't want to click an action that I've made or designed, because that's taking away the part I enjoy. So maybe that's why I prefer.
Rachel, I think, if I may say, I think that was something I really liked to hear you say. You said you like to stay in control. And I agree with you so completely there. I don't tend to use a lot of this new sophisticated software because I don't know what the blazes is doing. And I like to know.
And you know what? I'm sure it's very well, the maths and everything all checks out and it's all really
I'm sure it does.
I think it's just that's what I enjoy. Like I said, it would be like you know, somebody who really enjoys golf and you're paying for someone to hit your golf club for you and your ball.
Well,
I
exactly.
enjoy doing it. So, you know, I don't want to do actions. I want to do the sliders myself. I want to make the selections and I want to do as much as I can.
You know, it worries me when I see these things that say, we click this and the stars disappear. I think, well, how does it know what to put back when it took the stars out?
There
And
are
those
some
sort of
really,
questions,
intelligent.
whereas the way you do it, I can see that it blurs in the surrounding area. So that's fine.
Yeah, well, like I said, there are some really intelligent AI stuff that like I said, I've got one that's called Star Exterminator, and sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, and that literally clicks it, it removes the stars, job done. But I think I feel like I've been robbed a little bit. I like to go back and do it myself.
The same argument could be used that 10 years ago we couldn't mask in Photoshop and things like this, but now we can. You know, what's it doing now? So I think it's just a case of, you know, you use what you're used to and what you're comfortable with. And in 5 years' time, you may have a different story because you've discovered a different way of processing, you know, and that is either with PixInsights or with, you know, Star Wonder or whatever the next.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I think
by the way, I'm copywriting Star Wonder. No one knew that.
Rachel,
I'll use it.
Rachel, can I ask you a technical point about Photoshop?
Go on,
well, it was something you showed us. I didn't understand what it was doing. You were selecting red, and then you were moving a slider that moved. I don't know, was magenta or purple or blue or something. Oh no, yellow. I thought, well, if you're dealing with the reds, what does moving a yellow slider do to the reds?
I don't know. I think it doesn't work for everything, but I think because of the reds, the oranges and yellows seem to be in a similar gradient to each other, so they can. I think there's a slight mix of obviously those colours because obviously the orange is made of red and yellow, so I guess the colour tones are all there. If I'd have picked the reds and I'd have started moving the green slider, nothing would have happened. So it just depends on which colours. Some colours are manipulated by the slide and the others aren't. But I can't tell you the ins and outs behind why they just do. In my head, like I said, because you've got yellow, orange, and red. You know, they're a combination, aren't they? To make orange. So I guess if you're manipulating.
So if you're selecting the reds and you wind the yellow right up, it becomes a more orangey sort of colour, does it?
It just you know, shuffles the hue along. But whether there's, like I said, I don't look at the intense science behind it, so I just click some.
Well, I was trying to understand what happens to the colours on your screen when you do that. You did it all so quickly, I couldn't see what was happening.
Yeah, well, I was aware of the time, and I knew like how long you'd already been looking at the pictures. But like I said, you know, I'm happy to go back on and show you slower, Peter. But
you've tried that, Rachel. You were very good. You spent about an hour patiently taking me through Photoshop.
But like I said, and like was it Tony who said, you know, that's just my way, and it definitely isn't the right way or the only way. That's just where I've got to at the minute, and
it produces beautiful results.
It's forever evolving, so you know, I'm more than happy to try new things and to try different things. Not PixInsight yet, but you know, like you said, in a couple of years, then we might have reached the point here where I'm not getting the results I want and I want more, and I'd be open to looking at different things. I just can't afford it at the minute. But yeah, I'm happy to learn and try anything, you know, always happy to learn.
And I know we have a sort of love-hate relationship over colour balances, but you produce some beautiful pictures. It's just not what they really look like.
He also doesn't like it when I rotate my moons either.
Oh, no. North up.
Okay, Rachel, I think we've worked you very, very hard tonight, and it's been really fascinating seeing how you got started and how you progressed. So I'd like everybody to say thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. I hope it's been all right.